Welcome, fight fans, to a second attempt at another episode of Before the Baldman Speaks, episode 23, coming to you live directly after the Ultimate Fighter finale from Las Vegas, Nevada, and the main event between Chad Money Mendez and the victorious Frankie the Answer Edgar. A huge night for New Jersey, and here to help me break it down, New Jersey's own Jay Primetown. How you doing, Jay?
It's fucking awesome, dude. I'm so happy. You know what? I like Chad, but Frankie's my main dude, and seeing Frankie come through in such a big way, I didn't think it was possible he would a first round KO. Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, I think the coolest part about this finish wasn't just how it ended, because I think that it was within anyone who reasonably watches the sport thought that Frankie had a good shot of winning this. I bet on Chad Mendez, but it wouldn't shock me, if you had told me that Frankie Edgar was going to win that fight or did win that fight. That doesn't shock me. How it happened was really unbelievable. And even just like the way that it happened, I said it earlier before this podcast kind of crashed, but I think that I think that Chad was kind of implementing a game plan that was working until those, fateful blows landed. Were you agreeing with me, or did you see this a little different?
Yeah, I thought eventually, Frankie would pepper him with strikes, and it would be accumulation of volume, and he would, win at least 3 of the 5 rounds. I really questioned how Chad would come out after the loss to Conor McGregor. I thought that was the biggest factor, and that's why originally, if this fight was a year ago, I would have liked Chad Mendez in this bout. But as we got the fight day, I was liking Frankie more and more, and then just a couple hours ago, I really thought Frankie would win the fight, and it worked out. I'm very excited that Frankie won. I think that's better for the division because nobody wants to see Aldo, Chad Mendez. Okay, I shouldn't have said nobody would want to see Chad, and nobody would want to see Chad and Aldo again because the second fight was so fucking good.
Yeah, no, I think they're in a unique position that they could all fight each other and that they'd all be dope fights.
Yeah, these are the top 4 fighters in the division, in my opinion. I mean, Max Holloway's made a bid to be in the conversation. I mean, it would be pretty cool to see Max Holloway and Chad Mendez fight, in my opinion. But let's just say hypothetically that McGregor wins tomorrow. McGregor and Edgar is the fight to make, and Edgar is an absolute fucking nightmare. Frankie could win that fight against McGregor. He could spoil the entire party, and I love seeing Dana White with his mouth out. And
this fight came out real quick. That turned quick,
and just saying, "Hey, everybody, fuck." That's how it could go. That's how it could go.
I mean, what's great about that is also that I said it earlier. Frankie Mendez had,
I like that.
Frankie Edgar.
You're closest enough to saying Frankie Muniz from like that kid from what's that stupid show on Fox?
Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah, you got it. Right. Exactly.
So
he would have done better in this fight.
It's the payday of his career.
Oh, in that fight, he certainly would.
If he gets the golden leprechaun himself, Conor McGregor, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, if McGregor wins in 24 hours and he's the champion, the first title defense by McGregor is probably going to be in Ireland. That's what he wants, and Frankie Edgar doesn't care. Frankie Edgar will go to Ireland. There will be 1 million people that will watch the fight on pay-per-view. Frankie will make his points. Whatever it is, 2, 3, 4 million. McGregor will make whatever it is, $8-10 million. Hypothetically, just make a number.
Frankie wins that fight, becomes a legend. becomes one of these all-timers.
How does Frankie lose that fight? Frankie,
I don't see it either. I see him win that fight.
When's the last time Frankie's been knocked down in a fight?
Let me ask you this. Is the true goal in the featherweight division, or maybe even in the 155-pound division, not to necessarily fight for a title, but to somehow get your ass in a Conor McGregor fight?
That's
even if Conor loses. If Conor loses, do you want the fight against Aldo for the belt, or do you want the fight against Conor for the money?
I think it depends on how the fight plays out. I mean, if
you're Frankie Edgar, I'm saying you go for the money. Fuck the belt.
If Aldo goes in there and beats McGregor into oblivion, does it really matter? I mean, who knows? I mean, I don't know how people think. It's not. I don't know. Especially, I don't know how Irish people think. Quite frankly, I don't care how Irish people think. Did you watch that? Did you see any of that Q&A today? What a shit show that was.
That was so awkward and embarrassing that it was like painful to watch. I've watched people make big assholes of themselves. This is like I know what kind of a person I am and what kind of friends I have. I've seen a lot of douchebaggery. That was just such consistent dumb-ass behavior that it was hard to like. I felt bad for Megan Olivia or whatever the fuck her name is. I forgot. I felt bad for. I felt bad for Ireland. I felt bad for the women who fucked those men. I felt bad for a lot of people. I felt bad for humanity after that.
Yeah, why would you want one of those guys to be a father of your child? I mean,
that's the craziest thing.
Fucking damn.
Probably 40% of those dudes fathered like another human being.
That's a scary thought. It really is. I thought we had dorks in this country. Holy fucking Christ! I mean,
America represented in that Q&A. There was a lot of cornball ass Americans representing in that Q&A too. I'm not forgiving any of those motherfuckers.
Can you imagine if they made McGregor Con in Ireland and Dublin? Could you imagine the dorkdom that would come out there? I mean, holy fuck!
They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. There'd just be like 80 dudes lined up with their dicks out, like furiously masturbating while they waited to ask Conor a question. It would be considered a pornographic performance, not a Q&A.
Yeah, it's bad, dude. It's fucking bad. It's
so Frankie Edgar. This is circling around. Frankie Edgar puts himself in a fantastic position with this win. Poor Chad Mendes he's 1-3 in his last 4 fights, all against premium talent in a in a real tight division. Well, it's really tight in the top 5. Poor Chad Mendes. You mentioned him fighting Max Holloway. What do you conceivably see him going from here?
Yeah, I mean, look, Chad Mendes has lost 4 fights in his career. 4. So
do you consider him chinny after these 2 KOs?
I'm sorry?
Do you consider him kind of chinny after these 2 KOs? In your grand grading system, does his chin go down a grade?
Yeah, it's certainly. Absolutely. That's without doubt. But he's got 4 losses in his career. He's got 2 losses to Jose Aldo. He's got 1 loss to Conor McGregor, and he's got 1 loss to Frankie Edgar. Look at anybody in MMA history who has as many fights as Chad Mendes does, and he's only lost to the creme. As my good friend George St. Pierre would say, the creme de la creme. That's what he's lost only to the creme de la creme.
Yeah, he's really.
That's it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
So I mean, you kind of have
in
to
good fights in a couple of cases. There's 2
absolutely.
KOs, but one of the KOs he performed really well before. The second round knockout, and that Jose Aldo fight to a decision. I still put it up there in the top 5 of fights all time I've ever seen in my life.
In terms of just technical skill set, yeah, it was awesome.
Just in terms of enjoyment of me watching it, I was in a really good mood. It was all super exciting and entertaining, and there's great back and forth. Even though Jose was clearly winning. All right, but to try to stay on topic on this main event, Frankie Edgar just absolute showcase fight for him, and a guy who kind of constantly goes under the radar, puts himself with a big exclamation point in a big spot with a lot of eyeballs on him. I couldn't be more happy for the guy. I couldn't be more happy for Jersey. I'm glad that the East Coast is getting a little bit of love, and
That's right. That's
I'm a big fan of his camp too. I think that they get forgotten about when people talk about Winklejohn and ATT and all these other places. So I'm just super happy for them. They had a really good night. Well, actually, Barboza got kind of blown up in the second round there, so maybe it wasn't a straight sweep.
Well,
but in the big spot, they made it happen.
Yeah, look, I'm happy. You know where I am with this. Everyone knows where I am with this. He's getting the next title shot. It doesn't matter who it is.
Yeah.
At this point, I kind of I'm not even sure because I would love to see him be the one.
I want to see him against
I would
Conor.
love to see the one to blow up the Conor spot, but I would just as much like to see him end the Aldo legacy.
You know what would be unbelievable?
It needs to be done. It needs to be done.
Either way that it happens, I favor Edgar in both of those fights almost right now, and maybe I'm just talking straight off the hype of this thing. Jose, it's hard to favor him against Jose. But if he stopped Jose or if he stopped Conor, like, think about this. The guy who kind of ended the special, like, allure of BJ Penn also ends, like, the hype train of Conor McGregor, or the Jose Aldo.
Let's take it back a step. If Frankie Edgar retired tonight, he's a Hall of Famer, no question, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, it has to be, right?
I think
Champion in one division, number one contender in another division. He's beaten Uriah Faber. He's beaten BJ Penn 3 times. He's arguably beaten Ben Henderson.
He's only beat
knocked out Chad Mendes. He's fought toe-to-toe with Jose Aldo. Yeah. This guy's done everything. He's beaten Gray Maynard when Gray Maynard was undefeated.
He's
done a ton. He's done a ton. Yeah. He deserves all the accolades he deserves. And for a guy who's as undersized as he is, with the lack of quote-unquote punching power that he has, he's just a great fighter, and he really is the epitome of why people should watch MMA. He's kind of the guy that people like to root for because he's the guy that you don't think can win, but he will. He's like the little engine that could.
Frankie Edgar is the little
100%. 100%.
But I like it too because let's be honest, you're talking about a 135-pound fighter who accomplished all of these in the 155-pound and the 145-pound division. He clearly has a body that can easily make 35 pounds. And being a wrestler, that wouldn't be very hard for him. So it kind of makes all of this, even more special, I think. I think you instantly got to root for a guy like Frankie because, he does have that, like, almost little guy, look to him. If you were dumb, you would start shit with Frankie Edgar at the bar. You know what I mean? So I think that's
a terrible decision, though. Holy shit! If you want to, sure, you might win the first 15 seconds, but do you really want to get into like a 5-hour fight with Frankie Edgar? Because
it will not last 5 hours. Any person who shoves Frankie Edgar at a bar, thinking, oh, I'm gonna clown this tiny dude, just has a tornado of fucking fists thrown at him, probably.
Oh, dude, you'll just fight until he knocks you out. It won't last to sunrise, I can assure you that.
If you last a minute taking, just because he's going to hit you in combination. You're going to be drunk. You're going to be holding your fist up like this, which is so many holes in your defense.
A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. It's like, it's like, remember when you played Mike Tyson Punch-Out and you had to put in that stupid fucking code to, get to Mike Tyson? It's like him and his coach, and that's what they do. It's like, and they change it every fight. It's so weird. Yeah. It's amazing.
It is. It's really incredible. What they're doing over there, and their level of just technicality and professionalism they bring into it too is really great. Stop talking in code and all of that. Let's shift actually and talk a little bit about the co-main event because same camp, and we kind of alluded to it earlier, but Tony Ferguson in maybe one of the better back and forth fights of the year, got a submission victory late in the second round when that first round looked like it could have been a terrible, terrible night for Tony.
I'll tell you something. This fight, top 5 fight of the year for me. This was outstanding. I mean, it was just awesome. You know what? I like Tony Ferguson, but after this fight, I posted a list. I posted a list on Twitter of my 5 favorite fighters and my honorable mention. Tony Ferguson's jumping into my honorable mention. This guy knows how to throw down.
Yeah,
he's so diverse. I love those rolls into those leg locks. Those are sick, and those knee locks. It's just cool to see like him fight, his spinning combinations, his diversity, and his. I mean, I'm a big fan of when Rogan and Schaub get together and they do their little, their little conversations, and those guys, especially when the 3 of them get together with Eddie Bravo and they do their little menage a trois, and they're huge fans of Tony, and just hearing kind of, especially since Eddie Bravo is such a an expert on just a submission game as a whole, and those diverse maneuvers on the ground. Tony is, just hearing him kind of talk about Tony and then seeing him putting it all into motion in this fight it was beautiful. And then both of them cut up. It was kind of reminded me a little bit of the Miller-Lozon fight with the blood spraying everywhere.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just blood. It was thick blood, which is harder to submit a dude. And then he had that Darce choke, and I was like, and I was playing poker, and I was dead tonight, and I'm on my few final chips, and I'm just pushing them in. I'm like, I don't care. Look at that fight. It's a wrap, son.
Mm-hmm.
And you just see him got it. You just see him got that. You just see him got that collapse in, and it was a wrap. And it was a great submission. Tony he's right there, and he's a guy at this point. He could main event against 3 or 4 different fighters in that division. And I would pay a ransom to see those fights. Hear me out.
Okay.
Him versus Donald Cerrone, if he wins the title, can main event any card, in my opinion.
Definitely.
2, him versus Anthony Pettis is outstanding. Him versus
great fight.
Alvarez is fantastic.
It's got to be a co-main event. I can't main event anything.
And I wouldn't mind seeing him against Michael Johnson again. That'd be great.
Tony Ferguson.
Never mind the Khabib fight. Wait,
I don't.
You know what?
We don't have to talk about fictitious fights.
About Khabib. Yeah, I can't talk about Khabib.
We don't have to talk about make-believe fighters.
Hey, don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there. Anyway, this isn't Red Dawn. You don't want Red Dawn.
Tony Ferguson. I've been a huge fan of him for a little while now. Ever since he just decided, fuck it, I'm going to pull guard twice in 2 rounds on Danny Castillo, I realized that he gave 0 fucks. I love that he's willing to go for kind of crazy rolls. I was more impressed that he's willing to stand and kind of trade a lot more than I thought he would against Edson Barboza. He's one of these 10th planet guys who really has an interesting, different look and comes at a lot of different angles with his ground game, so that's fantastic. And interesting, none of those fucking ankle locks or attempts, whatever he was going for there, worked at all, but just the idea of it kind of kept, kind of added a wrinkle into his game that kept him alive in the stand-up longer. I think he's very dangerous against the elite at 155. I think the problem that Tony Ferguson faces is a problem of getting pushed in personality. I think he has a great personality, and I love Tony Ferguson. And kind of like that cocky brashness that that he pulls off, but I'm not sure if the UFC's a big supporter and lover of the Tony Ferguson brand like you.
I think they are. I think they are, because they see him as a finisher.
That's true. And that's a highlight fight right there.
They love a dude who finishes and excitement. Now him versus Rafael dos Anjos, that's a different story. But the other guys I mentioned, those fights are hot fire. They really, really are.
Those could be action fights, definitely.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think, another person who kind of made, himself a bunch of paydays off of tonight, Tony Ferguson. He set himself up for probably 2 or 3 very high-profile co-main event, main event fights that he can get a substantial payday off of, and really, really built his name on a big stage here.
Do you think he's worthy of a title fight?
No, it's just such a stacked division. There's like a pecking
order. Who else is there? Who else is there? I guess the Alvarez Pettis fight would be. I guess that
I don't love that as a contender because I think that Alvarez has lost too many times coming in. Let's see. Where we're at, we got
my main man. That's who you're talking about.
Huh?
You're talking about my main man, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Darn you. There's nobody else.
You could slide Nurmi into that spot, but you need Nurmi to get a warm-up fight, and I don't think you put Ferguson against him.
Not at this point, probably not.
That's tough. Yeah, you probably give Tony.
Could you imagine? Could you imagine though? They could. Look, Nurmagomedov. Khabib said he's going to come back for the Super Bowl card.
Yeah.
So your main event is Verdum versus Velasquez. That's booked, so I've been told.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that myself, but
word on the street is word on the street.
You need a co-main event. Could you imagine Tony Ferguson versus Khabib after coming off of this, and Khabib coming off his 20-plus wins, undefeated streak, going to that fight? And that's your number one contender fight? That would be hot fire as a main event, though.
You don't even really need that as him to do a contender fight at all. The Cowboy fight's next week. You got to figure they're going to turn that title around in the summertime.
Not that fast, though. Maybe in the summer, not in February.
But they're not going to then what are you going to do if you want a summer fight? You can't have a number one contender fight. I guess you could. You could have it in
sure.
You could have it in February.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that could happen. That's a quick turnaround for Tony. You could even have it in March and still have
with
it.
With that cut, though, I don't know. I assume the cut's probably going to require stitches. Yeah. Both of those guys needed stitches.
But there's not a lot of names. It's interesting. 55 is always so deep, but there's not too many people right now that you can plug into the title shot. I guess that Pettis Alvarez fight is that's a cherry-picked fight for Pettis to become a contender again, huh? Jesus Christ, Weedy boys.
Do you really want to see Pettis and Dos Anjos again? I don't.
Nah, I don't. No, I don't think many people do. I'd rather see Anthony Pettis fight Benson Henderson again if we're getting.
Ooh, I would love that.
You know what I'm saying? It seems like a weird, interesting enough time to make that happen, right? Get Benson Henderson back into this division. Let's see how weird.
Don't get me started. Talk about a guy who's got big balls. Jesus.
Big quads. That guy is fit.
Has there any fighter who's worked himself into positivity? If you want to use the good old wrestling example, Henderson was like a classic heel, and he flipped. Within a year's time, he flipped completely into a guy that people liked. It's weird. It's amazing.
All you have to do is fuck up Brandon Thatch. That's all. If you want to be likable with MMA fans, fuck up Brandon Thatch real quick.
Or jump divisions, beat up guys who are bigger than you, and say, "I'll fight anybody, anytime." And honestly, he feels like a guy who'll do that. He's not scared of anybody.
That's the cowboy model. Everyone loves cowboy.
Yeah.
Fucking the Irish people who are, goddamn maniacs. They're, they're barely thinking. They're just enough to buy the next beer and chug it there and just scream like maniacs, and as soon as Cowboy's mentioned anywhere, he gets a huge pop.
Sure.
Sorry, Irish people, I made you seem almost like animals there, but maybe it's sorry.
They're herbivores. They only eat potatoes.
After that Q&A, guys, it was tough. That was hard for me. I'm gonna hold that grudge for a while. Let's talk about some of this. Let's talk about some of these. I'm not going to talk about Artem Lobov against Ryan Hall. Fuck that fight forever, and that's it.
You didn't like it, huh?
Fuck that fight. Well, it's fine, but I wish that he would,
Hall deserved to win, though.
Of course, he deserved to win. Clear victory, but clearly a boring, dull fight of it was lack of talent, UFC caliber.
It was almost like he watched the Ferguson Barbosa fight, and that he wanted to spin into those situations where he could just work into submission scrambles, and it worked. That first round was almost like it was like he was like watching it, and it was tailor made for that situation. Hall deserved to win. Lobov had no idea what to do in those situations, and that's how it is. Grappling usually beats striking. That's how it works.
My problem with the whole fight is just like it wasn't that great of a level of of fighting. Lobov looked like a novice in there, and Hall looked like he knew enough jiu-jitsu to do that to someone who's a novice, and not And that to me is not worth money to pay. It's fine for someone to display technical skill in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but that doesn't mean I have to necessarily enjoy it, and I think that wasn't competitive, and that's mostly why I didn't enjoy it. I want to see competitive fights at a very high level, and that's that. Evan Dunham beat the shit out of Joe Lauzon. Poor Joe Lauzon. I still think he can get it done in some situations against people, but damn, does he get beat up if he fights a certain caliber of fighter nowadays.
Oh, that's interesting. So before I get to that, so Edgar on Aldo and McGregor, and I quote, "They knew I was coming."
Ooh,
yes, they do. Yes, they do. In terms of Joe Lauzon, I mean, Joe Lauzon's a pressure fighter. If he gets the fight to the ground, he's got the advantage over probably 90% of the fighters in that division. Fight didn't go to the ground.
Yeah.
I bet Joe Lauzon, because I thought at 2-1, I thought it was a good opportunity. I don't think he deserved to be a 2-1 underdog. I like the under because Joe Lauzon either usually gasses out or he's awesome early on and he can get finishes. I lost both bets. That fight wasn't good for me.
No.
But Evan Dunham is surprisingly underrated, probably shockingly underrated. He performs well. In my opinion, he beat Rafael dos Anjos when those two fought. Yeah. It was in Brazil. It was a 2-1 fight. He deserved to win that fight, and he was screwed. And the reality is his entire career as a fighter, in terms of his potential money that he could make, in terms of the fighters that he would be facing, changed completely because of some bullshit judging. That's the reality. He's a good fighter. He's a fighter. He's just made me
so fucking sad, Jay.
Sorry, I sorry to throw some truth bombs out there, but that's what I did.
We had like a funny thing happening, and then like I'm sitting here. I mean, last night on this show, we literally were talking about fuck a guy's livelihood if you can win a $200 bet on him getting screwed by the judges. Who gives a shit? Like,
it's a little bigger
celebrate the screw.
It's a little bigger. It's a little bigger. I like Evan Dunham. I mean, I just think he continues to be underrated. That's just the story. He's not flashy. He's not going to knock you out. He's probably not going to choke you, but he's good enough to keep fights on the feet, and he's technical enough that he scores with volume. That's what he does. He wins fights. He deserved to win tonight.
Oh, easily.
That's it.
I actually was, pretty, impressed by Joe Lauzon's grit, I guess. I think that there's a couple matchups that they could probably make if they're smart and don't put him necessarily against a huge name.
Who would you like?
I don't fucking know. There's so many people in the 55-pound division. You could put him against Jim Miller.
Don't say Sage Northcutt.
You could put him against Sage Northcutt. That might be fun.
Oh boy. Could you imagine?
Yeah,
I don't know what Dana would do. He might. I don't know what he'd do with Nick the Tooth. They might have to get a back alley room.
Do you think that they pay Joe Lauzon to take the fall in that fight? We can get Joe Lauzon a payday, hook or by crook, man.
Probably. I mean, why wouldn't they? I mean, I'm sure they already got his back pocket, so it's all good.
I heard Cody Pfister was at the Spearmint Rhino throwing hundos.
Was he really?
No. But that would be legendary,
Sure would.
Yeah,
sure would.
Kawajiri, schooled some, Alan Belcher product in the fight before that. God, really nothing else to say there.
I did a breakdown of Jason Knight on MMA Oddsbreaker. Those that aren't familiar, I do scouting reports on new fighters in the UFC. Usually cover all of them. I mean, there were a lot this week, so unfortunately I couldn't get to all of them. This was one I got to. I do a letter grade on about 10 or 12 different, I think it's about 10 different attributes regarding striking, offensive striking, defensive striking, speed, athleticism, all different attributes. And I give a final letter grade. This fight kind of went down the way I thought it would. Really, Jason Knight's only thing that really stands out is his rubber guard. It's really, really good, actually.
Yeah.
It's almost Ben Saunders level. It's really, really nice. He pulled guard in situations. He threatened with situations against a guy who doesn't really put himself in situations where he's gonna be submitted. He's kind of like Khabib in a way. I know people don't want to hear about that, but he is, where he kind of sits back. I don't want to do a visual, but he sits back in a way
I saw you
where
bail on it. You thought about it for a hard second, then you're like,
in order to
"Fuck
really
that act out."
Yeah, this is ridiculous. Yeah, I'm not. I don't need to do that, but in order to submit a guy from rubber guard requires you to have really flexible legs, and when the guy's head is really far up on your body, it gives you an advantage where you can kind of try to lock in triangles or some other type, or try to flip a submission on a guy who's more forward on you, and to try to lock in some sort of neck or a head submission. But if you sit back in the guy's guard and you're only kind of in his lap or in his jock, basically, it's kind of hard to land a submission. And that's what Kawajiri does. He really doesn't sit really too forward in the guard. So I really like Kawajiri in this fight because I didn't really see a way Knight would be able to be put in a situation where he would actually be able to secure a submission, and he didn't. And therefore, Kawajiri just basically landed at will when he actually threw strikes and he cut up Knight open. Sure, I mean, it looked like Knight at some points could, he had a little bit of threatening situations, but it really wasn't super dangerous. And at that point, it was a 30-27 wrap. So
yeah,
other
pretty
fights more dangerous.
Uneventful fight.
Yeah.
Kawajiri, if one thing is, pretty good at, maneuvering his hips and sitting in guard. He's fine taking people down. And I think at this, point in his career, he's happy to take a fight just like that where he's not going to get any damage, kind of get out of here unscathed, collect a paycheck, and move on to something maybe a little bigger than Jason Knight. You know what I mean?
For sure. That
was a weird matchup in general.
I mean, that wasn't the original matchup.
Yeah, really, exactly. So. Yeah. Before that, we had some other fucking clowns from Tough 22, and I didn't know about them. I didn't do any research about them, and as soon as I watched about a minute of this fight, I stopped watching this fight. So you could tell me what happened in it if you want to, or we could be smart people and just not talk about it, because fuck these stupid fights that they put on.
Yeah, I bet on Arosa, and I even regret betting on Arosa, but I don't know what I was thinking. I thought it was younger. I thought it was more. Yeah, maybe it was a little bit of a chase, but I just thought he was more. I just thought he had more experience in the submission grappling, and he certainly showed more in that regard. He transitioned well, but
how much did the split decision sweat you?
I mean, when I went to the cards, I really had no expectations. So
yeah. That was one of those things where it was like it ended, and I was like, okay, good, it ended.
Yeah, you're just hoping it ended, and you wanted to see something a little more.
Fuck it, if I had money on it either, I'd be like, shit, I deserve to lose, even if I didn't lose,
I was like, Crusher's up next. Yes.
Yes. This will entertain us. Before that, Gabriel Gonzaga put on maybe one of the least inspired heavyweight performances I've seen in the last few months in the UFC.
Talk about ever.
Yeah, it was really, really terrible. I think that in the entire second round, the Russian Bear didn't land a single strike. That might have happened.
So you're basically talking about it was a shorter version of Tyson Fury versus Vladimir Klitschko. I mean, talk about nothing happening. I mean,
For a guy who's talking as much
I
as
had
Tyson Fury is, did not fight.
yeah, totally. I personally had quite a bit invested in the under 1.5, and I was like, I didn't want to play the poker anymore. I was like, oh, I'm watching this, and I'm watching this fight happen. I'm like, this is just a disaster going on both fronts. I thought I was Germany in World War II, where I was getting beat up from one side and beaten up from another. I was getting beat up from an electronic box and beaten up from humans with their superior chips and their superior cards. It was terrible.
Which one was Soviet Russia is the real question.
Yeah, it was bad. It was a bad fight. I don't know about the 30-27. I thought Orokin maybe won the first round, but it really didn't matter. It was
I gave it a 30-27.
When you don't throw, you're not gonna win. And really, it's like if you, I mean, dude, you have mega power. You're like Shane Carwin power. Just throw. If you can't finish them, that's a different issue. But you have that ability. If you don't try, why are you wasting our time? Why are you wasting your time?
Well, my thing is it seemed like in the last couple fights that Gabriel Gonzaga doesn't have this power anymore that's necessarily going to turn you off. Kind of wait in there, take a blow to give a blow. You got the power advantage. Especially late in the fight when you're clearly losing. That fight, I grade every single fight. I'll give it an A to an F. That fight earned the rare F mark in a fight card that was kind of the tale of two cities, and that there was the best of times and there was the worst of times. This was the absolutely worst of the worst of times. Gabriel Gonzaga, Jesus Christ. Can we cut both of these fighters? That is the question.
I mean, you can't do that, but
of course you can. In my fantasy world, I cut everyone. If you don't entertain the king, you get cut.
I like
all right.
that.
Ryan LaFleur fought Mike Pierce, coming off of goddamn 7-year hiatus or something. But it seemed like while Mike Pierce has been gone from the game, people in the 170-pound division have gained 400 pounds. Because it just looked like goddamn Ryan LaFleur was a human specimen and Mike Pierce was a mortal man.
Yeah, this was a weird fight, wasn't it? I mean, this is when I was playing cards and I was kind of watching the fight out of one eye, and LaFleur looked a little better in round 1. Pierce clipped him in round 2. And round 3 was kind of even, but
he had that big bum rush at the end. Mike Pierce put it on him. Mike Pierce put it on him for like the last 20 seconds, and it looked dangerous. He was on as Joe Rogan would say, Queer Street all the way there.
Was he? Queer Street? I mean, talk about a New York reference right there. Holy cow.
It was, it was really fucking. It was bad news for Ryan LaFleur. I almost wish if he had started that blitz, at the 45-second mark, he might have finished him. Or maybe he did start it doesn't really matter. It was too little, too late, no matter what. Mike Pierce probably can catch some people, but this game is unforgiving on the old. You can't leave it for 3 years. That's just the unfortunate reality. And Ryan LaFleur, as much as he has holes in his game, he's going to be able to capitalize on it. He's a young, hungry guy in the midst of it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with the layoff. That I think certainly played an issue. But honestly, I had no idea who won the fight until about an hour until after it was done. I looked it up on I did a Google search and I looked at it, I'm like, LaFleur won by unanimous decision? Really? I actually was thinking when I looked it up that I was going to say that Mike Pierce won the fight. So, I mean, at minus 220, I think anyone who bet Pierce, I think they really made a really strong bet here, based on LaFleur just being so. Ugh. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, in the best New York Jew voice I can think of. I mean, it was just a whatever fucking fight. And I mean, I think whatever.
Yeah, I made a lot of strong bets that didn't cash tonight. This was a night of making a lot of strong bets that didn't cash. Before that, we had opened the fight was a terrible fight, and I won't even really mention it. It was this 155-pound fight with from people from the stupid show again.
Oh
Um,
boy.
but this Gene Herrera knocked
Oh,
the
that
fuck
fight.
out of poor Joby Sanchez at 125
That was a
pounds.
good one.
And anytime a flyweight knocks out another flyweight, I kind of always, perk my ears up because there ain't too many big finishers at that weight class. Guy comes in on short notice. Joby Sanchez, not the elite of the elite, but a guy who was clearly physically slowing down, still found the fortitude to get that finish there. Are you impressed as much as I am with Herrera here?
Yeah, his adjustments were awesome. This fight was pretty competitive in the first round, and it was really Herrera chasing Sanchez around the cage. But the second round was totally different. He really kind of set back, let Sanchez chase him, and he counter-struck beautifully. He was clipping him regularly, and then he landed a big shot, took it to the ground, and it was game over. I liked Herrera in this fight. I bet Herrera, bet the under. It was a nice little win. I didn't expect the under like going into round two, but I thought that was a bonus. But I did like Herrera. I liked how he fought against Borg. Saw that fight live with the M&A Analysis crew in Nashville when that fight took place. He's an interesting little fighter to watch. I don't think he's got a super high ceiling, but I think he'll stick around for a while.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna have a robust 125-pound division, I like seeing a guys with, a little bit of power to be gatekeepers in there. See if you can, fight someone who's got some serious, weight in those hands, because you're gonna get that once hit the top five, hit the top 10 even. So why not, why not have that be a barrier to entry? Just as much in that division, and it's nice to see someone be an action fighter who's shooting for KOs at flyweight. Flyweight
Sure.
needs some action.
Absolutely.
All right, let's talk about favorite worst fights of the card. Give me your fight of the night, and then give me your absolute worst fight of the night, because it seemed like there was both here. There's some really good fights and there's some real shit fights, man.
Well, I don't think there's any question what the fight of the night was. It was a top 5 fight of the year, in my opinion. Tony Ferguson
Against Edson Barboza.
Edson Barboza was an outstanding fight. I had my friends on their feet while we were playing cards. It was like, whoa! Like, it reminded me a little bit of Jim Miller versus Joe Lozon. Actually, there's blood all over the cage. Guys trying submissions, doing all sorts of crazy fucking shit. It was just an awesome exchange, and I really enjoyed it. It was top notch. I mean, that's really all there is to it. Worst fight of the night, Gonzaga or Rokin. I don't know how you could say it wasn't the worst fight. Yeah, I was expecting first guy to land to finish the fight. How the fuck this fight went to decision is beyond me. I mean,
'Cause no one landed.
30-28. What a weird scorecard.
It worked for me. I think a 30-28 was fine. I scored the second round as a draw because, fuck, if I could have awarded 0 points to everyone, I would have done that.
That was these stupid idiots in their 10-point must system. I mean, I don't know. Whatever. I mean, just a bad fight. I mean, how did it end so bad? How does Arokin not open his hands? He's got mega power. Just whatever.
Yeah. Honorable mention on terrible fights. Karajiwi against Knight. That was a tough one to swallow. Not a fun one. Gertz against Lavaris, that curtain jerker. That was tough one. That was a tough one to deal with. And finally, because there was a lot of shit fights this time around, that Marcin Walskek, another one of these tough 22 fights against Julian Erosa. That was not fun. Sorry, gentlemen, but you guys put in subpar performances this evening. And it's hard because there was some fights that were really super action-packed, especially at the top. The Frankie Edgar fight, that's a fantastic finish. An A-plus top-tier fight with Barboza, getting beat by Ferguson there. Even LaFleur Pierce, for all of its detriments, was an interesting and entertaining fight. And I think the Herrera KO was exciting too. So it seemed like this card had a little bit of trouble, overall building momentum and staying, consistently exciting. Overall, across the card, if you're going to give it a letter grade, you're the master. You're the master grade giver. Give the entire card a grade.
Yeah, this is hard because I really tended to like certain aspects of the main card. The finish in the main event was awesome, just because of the fighters involved and the meaning it meant. I thought the Ferguson Barbosa fight was one of the best fights of the year. I don't think there's many that would argue how significant, important, diverse, just the differentiating of fighting styles and the way it ended could really argue against that fight. But overall, the other fights in the main card really didn't do too much. The Herrera Sanchez fight was decent. I didn't hate the opening fight between Grutzmacher and Tavares. At least it was a striking exchange. But whatever. It's a fight between a superior fight card of fight pass card. The fight pass card was awesome. It had
really good card.
It was a really, really good card, and tomorrow's card on paper looks to be one of the best cards in the history of the organization. So
yeah,
this is really just just a bit of piecemeal in order to get to tomorrow.
Get us through. So give it a letter grade. What is it?
Probably a C+.
C+. Yeah, I landed on giving it a solid B. Why? Because the fights at the top ended up saving it. And just like, any good student, you pulled it together for the final exam, put in a final paper that's pretty A+ work. I'm going to give you the bump there. You probably really deserved the C-, but you're getting the B because you came through at the end. Once 1 o'clock in the morning Eastern time zone here, I need some action fights or I'm going to fucking start getting nappy. All right, so that's my thoughts on the fight card tonight. I want to thank my guests tonight, Jay, for stopping by and sharing some wisdom with us about the card. Why don't you tell the people where they can, contact you on Twitter, where they can see what you write, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, you could find me at JPrimeTown. That's Prime Town, not Prime, not Prime Time. You could see my articles at MMAOddsbreaker.com. I write two kinds of articles. I write scouting reports on new fighters in the organization. We talked about those before. That you can see letter grades on a bunch of different attributes, video game style, where I give a final grade on a fighter. Those can rate anywhere from an F to an A+. Generally, they're closer to an F, though. And then I also write articles on each fight card where I, discuss if I'm going to increase or decrease each of their letter grades. So I personally keep letter grids on every single fighter in the UFC organization. So 550 plus fighters. I know that's hard to believe, but I do. All the way from A to F in each division. And then I update them after each fight card. Tomorrow night is going to be awesome. I really do think that this Romero-Jacare fight is really going under the radar, and I think it's on paper one of the all-time great fights that we're going to see. That's not going to be a main event. I think it's really the coming out party for Yoel Romero, and he'll go on to fight for the UFC title, and it will be very interesting to see what happens.
Wow. There's a lot to digest there. Fans of the show, if you're not aware of, those letter grades for every single UFC fighter, it's quite an accomplishment. So MMA fandom out there, thanks you, brother. It's a long weekend here for me, hosting 3 shows directly after this. These go late at night, and we're kind of rounding third base here. I want to thank everyone out there who, watches the show live. Even if you catch it on the replay, I'd like, shout out to you as well. But especially the people out here who stick with us, watch until 2 in the morning on the feed as it comes out. You guys are the best. And shout out to you. Once again, thank you, Jay, for coming on the show. Really excited for the big show tonight. We're going to pump it up, big energy. My guest tomorrow night's Dan Levy at Best Fight Picks on Twitter. Shout out to him. As always, you can always hit me up on Twitter. I'm at The Clown Kid. Just reach out, say something funny. We'll talk about MMA. I'll give you life advice that you don't want. And, use it to your discretion. Look at the opulence that surrounds me and ask yourself, do you want to partake in such opulence? And then maybe take some of my life advice. All right, people out there, thanks for listening to the show. Peace out.